Welcome to Lecture 19, in which we will talk about the future active and middle indicative verb. This lecture is based on Chapter 19 of Bill Mounce's The Basics of Biblical Greek. In this lecture, you will learn both the meaning and the morphology of the future active and middle indicative. You will learn that the future tense describes undefined action in the future time. You will learn the first of 4 patterns of future tense formation, the most common pattern in which the future is formed by adding the tense formative sigma and the primary personal endings. We begin by discussing the meaning of the future tense, or if you prefer, the function of the future. The meaning of the future. The future tense describes an undefined action that will occur in the future. It's future from the point of view of the writer or the speaker, not from the reader's perspective. The type of action is undefined. The time of action is future. Here are 2 examples. Number 1. Vaptisi ento Jordano. Vaptisi ento Jordano. He will baptize in the Jordan. The future tense simply indicates that someone will baptize in the future. We do not know whether he will baptize as a one-off event or as an ongoing practice. What we do know is that this undefined baptizing will happen in the future. Number 2. Hotheos ou pirasi hemas. Hotheos ou pirasi hemas. God will not tempt us. Once again, we know that God will not, in the future, tempt us. The form of the verb does not indicate whether it's a one-off type of temptation that's in view or a habit of temptation. It is simply a statement, undefined, that God will not, in the future, tempt us. The future tense can also be used to A. express a command, or B. state that a generic event will occur in the future. We have the same range of meaning in English. Here are 2 typical examples. Firstly, agapesis kyrion ton theon sou. Agapesis kyrion ton theon sou. You will love the Lord your God. The future is being used to give a command. You shall love the Lord your God. The most famous example of this is in the 10 Commandments, where many commandments are expressed using future tenses rather than imperatives. If you think about them for a moment, you'll recognize that statements like, you shall not commit adultery, you shall not commit murder, are future tense forms, but they are actually being used to give commandments. Secondly, Uk eparto mono zeisete ho anthropos. Uk eparto mono zeisete ho anthropos. Man shall not live on bread alone. Here the future states a general future event. Man shall not live on bread alone. Man shall not live on bread alone. It's just a general statement of something that happens in the future. So the default meaning of the future is to describe an event that will take place in the future. It represents this by virtue of undefined action. And then there are 2 particular uses that are worth noting. The future is frequently used to express a commandment, and it is sometimes used to state a generic event that will occur. Now we need to discuss the morphology of the future tense, or in other words, the form of the future tense. How is it formed, and how can we recognize futures? In this lecture, we are looking at the pattern 1 futures. Greek has 4 patterns by which to form the future tense. What Mounce calls pattern 1 is the most common. It covers 3 groups of future tense stems. Firstly, stems ending in iota or ipsilon form their futures according to pattern 1. The verb aku, which ends in ipsilon, is a good example of this category. Secondly, stems ending in a contract vowel, alpha, epsilon, or omicron, form their futures according to pattern 1. Pierre and agapa are good examples. If we combine these first two groups, it means that almost all stems that end in a vowel form pattern 1 futures. Thirdly, stems ending in a stop form their futures according to pattern 1. Vlepo is an example. Remember that there are 9 stops. Therefore, pattern 1 covers stems ending in the 9 stops and 5 vowels, accounting for fully 14 of the 24 possible stem types. This is why pattern 1 is far and away the most common pattern of future formation. This chart shows how the pattern 1 future is formed. As we've just noted, there are 4 ways in which Greek can form its future tense. The default form is by adding the tense formative sigma. Mounce calls this pattern 1, and it's the only pattern we are covering in this lecture. It is far and away the most common way of forming the future. The pattern 1 future is built on the future tense stem by adding the tense formative sigma. This is the diagnostic for most future tense forms, the tense formative sigma. Then we add the same connecting vowel and personal endings as we use in the present indicative. The only difference between the present and future indicative for pattern 1 futures is the addition of the tense formative sigma. The future tense uses primary personal endings because it's not an augmented tense. Now let's look at the active paradigm for the future of Leo. The first person singular is liso. It's formed from the tense stem, li, plus the tense formative sigma, connecting vowel omicron. There's no personal ending. This gives us liso, I will loose. The second person singular is lysis. The tense stem is li, tense formative sigma, connecting vowel epsilon, personal ending iota sigma, you will loose, lysis. The 3 singular, lysi, tense stem li, tense formative sigma, connecting vowel epsilon, personal ending iota, lysi, he, she, or it will loose. The first person plural, lysomen, the tense stem is li, the tense formative sigma, connecting vowel omicron, personal ending men, lysomen, we will loose. The 2 plural, lysete, tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel epsilon, personal ending te, you will loose. And the third person plural, lisusin, the tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel omicron. The third person plural ending, remember, is nsi with a movable ni at the end. You are by now familiar with the vowel changes that take place when the ni drops out in front of sigma. So, lisusin, they will loose. If you look closely at these forms, they're identical to the present active indicative paradigm, except for the addition of the tense formative sigma. This chart shows the building blocks for the future middle indicative of a pattern 1 verb. In the present tense, the middle and the passive are identical, but in the future tense they are completely different. For pattern 1, the middle closely resembles the present tense middle voice. The only difference is the addition of the future tense formative sigma. Thus the building blocks are the future tense stem, ya li, the future tense formative, sigma, the connecting vowel, omicron or epsilon depending on what the personal ending begins with, and the primary passive personal endings. Since the future is not augmented, it takes primary personal endings. Here is the paradigm for the future middle indicative of Leo. The 1 singular, lisome, tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel omicron, first person ending, me, lisome, I will loose for myself. The 2 singular, lise, tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel epsilon, remember that the actual personal ending is se, but the intervocalic sigma drops out, which causes all kinds of strange changes. This yields lise, you will lose for yourself. The three singular, lisete, tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel epsilon, third person singular ending te, lisete, he, she, or it will lose for him, her, or itself. The one plural, lisometha, tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel omicron, personal ending metha, lisometha, we will lose for ourselves. Two plural, liseste, tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel epsilon, personal ending ste, you will lose for yourselves. And the third person plural, lisonte, tense stem li, future tense formative sigma, connecting vowel omicron, personal ending nte, they will lose for themselves, lisonte. This paradigm is exactly the same as the present, middle, or passive indicative paradigm of Leo, except for the addition of the future tense formative sigma in all forms. We need to briefly consider how the tense formative sigma is added to contract verb stems and to verb stems that end in a stop. Let's begin with our contract futures. Contract verbs form their futures by lengthening the contract vowel before the tense formative is added. So if we have agapa, which ends in the vowel alpha, and we add the tense formative sigma and the ending omega, the contract vowel alpha lengthens from alpha to eta when the tense formative sigma is added. This would give us agapeso. Similarly, pa plus sigma plus omega, the contract vowel epsilon lengthens to eta when the tense formative sigma is added. So the form becomes pieso. Lastly, if we take plero, ending in omicron, and we add the tense formative sigma and the ending omega, the contract vowel omicron lengthens to omega when the tense formative sigma is added, hence we get pleroso. Let's look at three examples. Agapesis ton kyrion. Agapesis ton kyrion. You will love the Lord. Notice, agapa, the alpha has lengthened to eta, the tense formative sigma was added, and then we have the ending is, agapesis. Next we have piesusin ten kivoton. Piesusin ten kivoton. They will make an ark. Piesusin means they will make, from pieo. You can see that the stem vowel epsilon has lengthened to eta when the tense formative sigma was added. This gives piesusin, they will make. And finally, plerosomen ten gain. Plerosomen ten gain. We will fill the land. The stem was plero. We added the tense formative sigma. When the tense formative sigma was added, the omicron lengthened to omega to give us plerosomen. We will fill. So whenever the tense formative sigma is added to a contract stem, the contract vowel, the final vowel of the contract stem, lengthens before the sigma is added. Alpha lengthens to eta, epsilon also lengthens to eta, and omicron lengthens to omega. Now let's consider what happens to stems that end in stops. Firstly, you need to learn the square of stops. You should already have learnt it in the first Greek course when we were dealing with nouns. If you haven't learnt it, be sure that you know the square of stops inside out, back to front, upside down, every conceivable way you could need to know it. The square of stops tells us what happens when the tense formative sigma is added to a stem that ends in a stop. If the stem starts in a labial, that labial turns to psi. If the stem ends in a velar, when sigma is added, the velar goes to xi. And if the stem ends in a dental, when sigma is added, the dental drops out and is replaced by sigma. Here are two examples with stems ending in labials. Firstly, vlepso se avrion. Vlepso se avrion. I will see you tomorrow. If you look at vlepso, the stem is vlep ending in p. We add sigma and omega, and then what happens is p plus sigma goes to psi. Hence we get vlepso. Secondly, grapsis ten epistolein. Grapsis ten epistolein. You will write the letter. Grapsis is a future. The stem is graph, ending in phi. We add sigma, the tense formative, and the ending is, and then phi plus sigma goes to psi. Hence we get grapsis. Grapsis. You will write. Now some examples with stems ending in a velar. Firstly, dioxusin himas. Dioxusin himas. They will persecute you. Dioxusin is a future. It comes from the stem diok, ending in kappa. We add sigma, and the third person plural ending part, usin. Then kappa plus sigma gives us xi. That's how we get dioxusin. They will persecute. Secondly, axi ton laon of two. Axi ton laon of two. He will lead his people. Axi is a future tense verb. It comes from the stem ag, ending in gamma. We add sigma and the ending e. Then gamma sigma goes to xi, because a velar plus sigma always goes to xi. Hence we get axi. He will lead. And finally, examples with stems ending in a dental. Firstly, we have vaptisi ento pneumati. Vaptisi ento pneumati. He will baptize in the Spirit. Vaptisi is a future tense. The stem is actually vaptid, ending in delta. We add sigma, the tense formative for the future, and the ending part e, and then a dental, delta plus sigma. The dental drops out and we are left with just sigma. So yeah, the delta that ends the stem drops out and we get vaptisi. He will baptize. Secondly, pisi ton laon of two. Pisi ton laon of two. He will persuade his people. The verb pisi is a future indicative. The stem is actually pith, ending in theta. We add sigma, the tense formative, and then the personal ending e. And theta sigma is a dental plus sigma. The dental the drops out and we are simply left with sigma. Hence, pc, he will persuade. Finally, here is the future of EIMI, I am. You can think of the stem as epsilon sigma s, and then we basically build the future exactly the way we build the middle form of the future in general, adding the connecting vowels and endings. We don't have a doubled sigma. One of the sigmas would fall out if you are imagining that we add the tense formative sigma to the stem s. So the paradigm is esome, I will be, esse, you will be, este, he, she, or it will be. Notice that the connecting vowel drops out of this one. Esometha, we will be, eseste, you will be, and esonte, they will be. This is the end of lecture 19.